All right. So we are back with Ziklag, who's going to be talking to us about the Bones engine. And I think this is the first project we've seen on the meetup that's part of like the sort of fish folk ecosystem. And so, Ziklag, I'll pass it over to you. I'm super excited to hear about this.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm pretty excited to be able to present here. No, it's just been a exciting quest, so to speak, working on Fish Folk, and it's been a long journey through a lot of different technologies and stuff like that. And starting off with, I started off rewriting it in Bevy once I got onto the project after contributing a bit, and then as we kind of adjusted and understood our needs, we ended up making Bones, um, which kind of sits on top of Bevy now, for rendering, but otherwise is pretty independent and agnostic of Bevy. And it's just been a lot of learning and a lot of interesting stuff. But glad now to be able to show some of the most exciting developments we've had, which is getting Lewis scripting implemented. And also, so this really goes for our focus on wanting to get stuff moddable, which has been a huge journey, just like everything else. But we finally have assets. We have like a custom asset loader that can hot reload assets and also load asset packs. So it's super easy to install, use your content, and also scripts. So for the first time, we get actually custom programmable items in the game. So I'll start off just by running the game. And we've had a menu for a little bit now. But it's still nice that it's there. Uh, right now we've got 4 fish characters. We've got a couple more that we've just got to re-add to the game uh, that we had taken out earlier for just to scope some changes we were making. But we get in the game and we've got our course with a bunch of items all over the place. So we've got bombs and crates that you can throw and guns you can shoot, all stuff, and there'd usually be more fish and you're fighting each other. And one of the core items we got in here is the Springer. It's just this pushes you up when you jump on it or when you step on it. And so this is a great chance to show that we have our in Jumpy. We try to put everything not code into assets. We want to keep everything not hard coded, so that's super easy for like artists and stuff to change it. And here we have in Jumpy assets, we've got our Springer, and we do everything in like YAML files for like metadata and configuration. So like if we open Springer element YAML, we've got this is an element is like anything that shows up on the map. So we've got Springer's an element, the anything that you can interact with, or even the fish. The fish are an element. The seaweed's an element. These snails and the crabs are these are all elements. Just something that you can place on the map, and that becomes really nifty. We have a map editor that still needs to be ported to Bones, but you can essentially place just anything you want on the map. And so we have the element, which just gives you like the name, and then it also sets a data. And so the data is, it pretty much is what describes the element completely. So in Bones, we have schemas, which describe like, think of it like, it's kind of like a JSON schema, except it's more like a Rust struct definition. And it describes the data like some sort of a, it just describes what data you can fit into a struct. And so when you say load this data, it uses the extension, in this case, Springer.yaml, to know that it's looking for something that matches the Springer schema. Inside the Springer, we set the atlas, and we use this extension so that it knows that's a .atlas YAML. So it loads it with the atlas schema and the atlas set loader. But the fun part is we've got something like the spring velocity here, and we can change that to like 28. And on cue, the game has crashed because there are bugs with the asset loading that we will fix. But anyway, so the Springer now is super high because we changed the data, and if we get lucky, this will not crash again when I change it back to normal. And it crashed again. It's probably streaming. Okay, it's performance sensitive. I figured that was gonna happen. But this will work in a second, most likely. There. Okay, so this is the whole point, is hot reload. You leave the game running and you make changes to the file, and without having to reload the game or restart or anything, it loads the changes so that you can do all kinds of stuff without having to do this annoying game restart thing over and over again. So that's the Springer. So another important thing, so that's the Springer, if we look, is inside the Jumpy assets. So it's inside the core game. But an important thing is we want users to be able to install their own asset packs. So we go to the packs here. We've got, right now we have a dev pack installed. And so this is already helping us out because we can have a pack that is included in the Jumpy repo and gets loaded while you're, running in development, but it's not shipped. So we can put stuff that's like work in progress here or just for demoing purposes, like that hat that we're not putting in the game, but is just, it lets you mess around and lets us merge like pull requests and all that kind of stuff into the dev pack and then move it into the game once we're ready, which is very nifty. And so we also have a dev level in here and a blunderbuss, which we're going to get to in a second. Before that though, so I showed you we had 4 skins earlier for the 4-player skins. I'm going to install an art pack, and this one it has a couple skins, Inky and Marley, in it, and those are actually made by my brother. So we're going to come back to the game. Now, art packs, installing new packs requires restarts, but we'll be able to do that without restarting later. And we come to the player selection screen, and now we've got a couple new characters just like that. All we had to do is install the pack, and we're going to make a UI pretty soon here for making it real easy to just download and pack. So you could just paste like a URL to GitHub release zip or any zip file, and then it can unzip it and install the pack. So now we are able to jump into the game with the squid character. And that was, so now already we've got an artist can just come in and bring their own pack YAML and uh, their own pack asset pack folder with all the files in it and get it in the game and test it out, and that will be hot reloaded too. And we're going to go to the dev level to show off. So this item is actually 100% implemented in, well, 100% is not exactly right, but it's totally implemented in Lua. So like the game had no concept of what a blunderbuss is or what it does other than having like a basic bullet abstraction. It knows how to make bullets that fly and have, so bullets are built into Rust, right? But otherwise, this blunderbuss item was programmed in Lua. So and we're going to show that here. So just like the Springer though, the blunderbuss, because like we have like Lua code that describes how the weapon behaves, what's it do when you pull the trigger and all of that stuff. But we've also got like configuration that we want to have that we want to make easier to change. So um, we can see here, this is a schema YAML, and these are special. It describes the blunderbuss schema. So this is like, you can kind of see it here. We've got a name, full name, which is like a full module path, and then a kind, where does it say it's a struct with a field named cooldown. Um, and so the schema YAMLs, they give you a way to describe the data that the asset loader can go and then check and make sure that you're following that schema. And this also allows you to insert, because we have a custom ECS, it allows you to insert these types into the ECS, and it stores it just like as if it were a Rust type. And then it can be accessed from the script. So here we have blunderbuss meta will describe all of the fields that are valid inside a blunderbuss or a blunderbuss.yaml file. And so we have like the bullet count, the bullet spread. So like we can mess with that right here, and we could say, let's make the bullets not spread out so much at all. And then that's hot reloaded. Now we get a much more straightforward shot pattern. But we also have a Liss Script, which is also hot loaded. So this is the implementation of the blunderbuss in Lua. And we've got like a bunch of, these are all schema imports. So essentially, these are all types that are registered either in schema YAMLs or that actually come from Rust. And most of these come from Rust. So for instance, entities, element handle, blunderbuss meta, that actually comes from this YAML here. Sprites. So like the awesome part about the schema system is that if we go to our Rust code, we've got like a Rust struct, this is a bullet, and it has schema, and it also is repc, so it uses a stable memory representation. And that's what lets us do all kinds of fancy casting and otherwise dangerous stuff, is by knowing that the data inside this bullet will be laid out in a stable memory representation. So just by adding has schema, derive, repc, and then making sure that we register the schema here, that instantly allows any Lua script throughout the game to import the schema like this. And then in these Lua scripts, we have we define functions for, so this is like a hydrate function. This is like an ECS system. And we're able to say resources get entities to get the entities resource from the ECS. And we're able to say entities iter with, so iterate over all the entities that have an element handle and a map that are without a map element hydrated component. And so this pattern of programming interacting with the ECS is very similar to how we do it in Rust. So it's also easy to it's easy to combine both Rust and Lua for things that need Rust performance, or that we want just core and easy to access inside the game, or that for whatever reason needs functionality not as easy to do in Lua. But it's super easy to combine with Lua because they can both interact on the same ECS world. Um, and let's do something fun here, where this is where we on update, and we register our systems here. So we say we want to add this update function to run in the post update stage. But we get a random number resource here. We pull that from up here. We grab our global RNG. We use that. That's why we get this random spread pattern, and where they're not always in the same spot. But we can make that, let's say we want to make that completely even and no randomness. We can just do divided by bullet count, so that each bullet that spawns is evenly spread out. And then we can also, like, one of the funnest things with modding is to be able to do just dumb stuff. Like, we're going to go in here and blunderbuss, we're going to set the bullet count to like 20, and we're going to say the cooldown, so like how fast can I pull the trigger, however I want, and make it spread out like more. We can come in here and we can just blast like crazy. And so all of this stuff, or like for instance, we've got a kickback. We can go into the kickback is also in the Lua script. And we can just, let's comment out the kickback. Set it to 0 here. And that could have also gone in the YAML, because that's a nice thing to be able to set conveniently for different guns. And now I got no kickback. And all of this without restarting the game, assuming it doesn't crash, right? No, we'll fix it. But the awesome part about this is that the Lua script has pretty much full-blown access to the ECS, as long as you annotate your Rust structs with repc and you derive has schema is actually required to stick anything in the ECS. So the ECS is kind of presenting this interface that makes it easy for throughout the game. I can be writing Rust, and then, like, I noticed earlier when I was developing the blunderbuss, because I just finished this like yesterday, that, oh, the bullet wasn't repc, so I just go and add the annotation, and now I recompile the game, and we've got access to it from Lua. So it's all it's just it's the experience we wanted, because like me and my brothers had like played, and we're trying to mod a like a Minecraft type clone at one point, an open source one, and it bugged us because we always wanted to get more power out of the Lua API. It could only do so many different things. And the developers, like, they just hadn't added certain features that the Lua scripters needed. And there's like this division there. What we wanted was to help make it so it's super easy for the developers to not have to think too much about like hand holding the Lua API and making sure that, oh, make sure we give Lua a way to do this or that, but to just make the ECS, give script pretty much free reign over the ECS so that we don't have to worry too much about Lua being powerful enough to do things. Sometimes, like for the random number generator, I had to add like a little binding here. We can actually look at that, and it's not that bad. Um, So we have this is our uh, our global RNG resource that we've defined in Jumpy, and it does have schema, but inside of it is this atomic RNG thing from the TurboRan package or the TurboRan crate, and this doesn't have Lua bindings. It's not RepRC, so like how do we interact with it in Lua? Another concept behind the bone schema is that you can add type data just with a type data annotation. And this can be like anything. This allows you to like, we can add type data for components to say, I want to pre-allocate storage for 30 entities because I know I'm only ever going to have 30 entities of this or with this component, and I want to pre-allocate memory. Or it's used by the asset loader to mark certain types as being handles so that the asset loader can customize the way it loads based on this type data. So in this case, it's kind of like allows you to customize the way compatible systems interact with it. So in this case, we add a schema Lua ECS ref meta table. So that's a mouthful, but what it does is it registers this function that returns a Lua meta table. And meta tables in Lua are like they give you like the ability to add methods that aren't really on the actual type. So it's kind of like a proxy type in JavaScript but it lets us essentially add new bindings so that we can say, okay, this function says whenever this global RNG resource pops up in Lua, I want to override its meta table and add this F32 function, which if we undo what we did earlier to take out the randomness, we can see that we're able to call this F32 function, get randomness from this resource. And this is bindings. This is a manual binding code for Piccolo. Piccolo has been a big deal for us. It's the Lua engine written by Kyron um, in the Rust community. And it has been a huge help because, for one, it's got a fully safe Rust API, which is great. And it runs in WASM just natively. So we didn't have to, we like all of this modding stuff actually works other than hot reload, which you'd have to refresh the web page for now. But all of this works in the browser just fine. So modded items, extra skin packs, that can all work in the browser without trouble. So it's very exciting, and it's been a very awesome to get to, and we've gotten a lot of help from Kyron integrating it and developing any extra features we needed. So that pretty much wraps up yeah, I think that's about it. Any questions?
Awesome. Yeah, so I think a few things that I'm curious about. Well, first of all, I love seeing hot reloading. It's very cool to see the exploration of what can be done with it. And so also just the fact that so one part of it is you make it easy for artists to use. The second part is you make it easy for the players to add. And the fact that you have like the mod pack, you can copy that in, or I guess the art pack or like the functionality pack. Super cool. So one thing I was thinking is like this ability to very easily add I don't know, like 100 bullets at once or something, in my mind allows for a lot of very not really emergent behavior, but mechanics that can focus around just like doing stupid stuff like now you have 30 bullets, but half of them go off in a weird direction or something like that. Um,
Exactly, yeah.
yeah, and so what I was curious about is like, have you seen any of these interactions while you've been developing or while you've been playing that are just like super cool because you can have so many weird things happening together?
Well, one thing that was kind of funny is yesterday when I'm working on the blunderbuss, I accidentally, like, the Lua throws an error while it's trying to spawn bullets, and then I start jumping around. I might even be able to induce it again, But like watch if I take out take out a parentheses or something just to add a syntax error. And then I come back into the game and okay, it's not working. But oh no, I don't.
I love how it's just like, we'll just reintroduce this issue from yesterday, and then
Yes.
we'll have some funny things happen.
Okay, there.
Wait, I think I saw the picture of this.
So
Okay, and I saw this, and I'm like, this could be its own interesting thing. Like maybe you don't see the player,
exactly.
but that like the player's invisible, but you can see like how they move around, like what their path is.
So like, and we were thinking, okay, wait, we could use streamers or something. And like, okay,
Yeah,
I didn't have kickback yesterday, but it's kicking me back every frame now too. So it's like, so that stuff is hilarious and fun.
yeah.
And that's when like we had this experience when we were modding Star Wars Battlefront, and we're looking at the like the UV unwrap of the player. It's a flat image that
Mm.
has all the stormtroopers on it, and we wanted to give him like a gauntlet, and we're trying to find his arm guard, and we couldn't figure it out, and we placed like big pink text arm guard on the font somewhere, and then we're like, where is it? And then we look on the behind of all of the stormtroopers
Yeah.
was arm guard because we got it wrong. But it was just like
Nice.
it's fun to like all of the the stuff that you're not expecting, and then just being able to experiment with it is just it's a big deal, and it's like it makes you want to make something. And what we like got into Battlefront modding, and then we would get stuck because we couldn't go further. It wasn't documented. There was no way for us to like add these, like we're imagining all this gameplay, and there's just no way for us to add it. But the cool part now is, or with like an open source game, is that you can mod it, and if you can't do something with modding, you can go and you can do whatever you want with the source code. And then also wanting to make it so that modding again kind of has this implicit power that the developer's not having to work to make they're not having to work to make the mods like
Hmm.
give them the ability to change major stuff in the game. And
Hmm.
like we don't know what you could do with the scripts at this point. Like you can do anything. It's like
Yeah.
you could come and hijack the way these fish move with another mod and have mods fighting each other for control over something. It's like anything could happen,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Yeah, it's almost like with some of this, it's not undefined behavior, but it's just like yeah, behavior, erratic behavior, whatever is stuff that's working together in weird ways, and then you
Is
see
that
that weird
emergent?
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It all comes together and then makes something new. Yeah, so I'd love to kind of see what that. So what someone who like explores that a lot and makes either some mod or some game mode or whatever. Like I think one of my favorite things is in like the massive like Among Us rage or whatever, like people would take this base game that hardly had any settings for you to change, impose their own rules, make a few tweaks, and then play a new game mode with their friends. And so I think seeing that possibility in these games, or for someone who's playing with their friends to just go in and make a quick change that hot reloads for everybody, it would be super cool to see. Or I mean, okay, here's the other thing: is like, what if you as a player every round or something you got to make a tweak to one of the numbers, like you get 3 different numbers you can change, it's like there's so
Yes,
much that you
yes,
can do
yes.
because it's hot reloaded.
And
Yeah.
that's another thing is like we had a game map editor, and all we really have to do is port the UI. But that was a big deal because the editor was uh you can click and drag everything. Like you're actually it's not like a edit and then play mode. You're editing, and you can still control the player. You can erase blocks under your feet. You can add new items just like that. Um,
Hmm.
and potentially we can even do that with multiplayer is something that could be done too. And we were thinking of with the asset system too is letting potentially adding more like these YAML files, with you've got like settings in here. You could edit these settings just right in the UI, and to change stuff, or even edit. We could potentially add a Lua editor. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
possibility, and then even syncing that over the network. There's a lot of
Yeah. I don't think
possibilities.
that's like, has hot reloading in like a live game over the network really been done before? Like you can make small tweaks here and there, but the thing is, like, are there many games where you can edit the like so you can tweak numbers, but can you add functionality or like change
Exactly.
scripts over the network? That is a very interesting idea.
And that was one nice thing about you know, obviously it was work and we're still working out the kinks and it's crashing on reload, but we can right, with having our own asset loader and our own asset system, it's allowed us to make these decisions for uh, to account for things that maybe other people don't need, and it would be a lot harder to work into a different
Yeah.
asset design. But we've kind of got now that we've done it, we've got the freedom to go and say, okay, like already we're trying to put stuff in so that you can sync assets from across the network, because like we played some games like Mindustry, like me and my brothers, and it's
Mhm.
like it's annoying when you have to manually like copy the zips for the mods to each other's computer and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so having that game just say, okay, I know that you need these files, I'm going to sync them over to you, and you just load the mod from each other, and then potentially even hot reload the mod from each other. There's a lot of realm to explore here, and not like a monumental amount of work, I don't think. It's a lot
Mhm.
of work. All of this has been a lot of work,
Yeah, of course, of course.
and taken a lot longer than might have thought. But it's still all within the, like, there's not a lot that we haven't done that's like a huge question mark. Is it possible? So
Mhm.
it's pretty exciting to get to a point where we're demonstrating a lot of a lot of the end goal here. So cool.
Yeah. And just kind of talking about this development and building, one thing I was curious about is you mentioned that you're building on top of Bevy. And so what does that relationship look like when, for example, Bevy does an update or you want to tie into some systems and go a little bit deeper than the surface?
So right now, the we kind of have this concept, the where like the Bones world encapsulates all of this game logic, because all of it's essentially, and it's snapshotable. We needed that for like rollback, fast forward. I can't demo the snapshot, or I kind of can demo the snapshot if it doesn't crash. So I took a snapshot and then you can pop over.
Mm,
There's some things that aren't done yet, but it just needs a little bit of fixing. But the idea that this Bones world kind of captures your game and holds the kind of a, I guess, a simpler version of the game. It keeps like
mhm,
this is a sprite, it goes here. This is a tile map. These are all my tiles. This is the tile text
mm,
set texture.
yeah.
You're not thinking about rendering this, you're not thinking about triangles, you're not thinking about shaders. And then and that's like at the, we call the Bones framework level of it. And then we take the Bones Bevy renderer and we feed it this Bones world, and it just renders it. And we have like, it's not actually that much. We just have like one file that goes through, and it loops through all of the entities and all the sprites, and it makes sure it creates a Bevy sprite for it so that it gets rendered. And the cool part about that is that it creates this division in the complexity set. If you have something fancy rendering thing, it can kind of sit behind the simple version, and you can just make simple entities and components for it. So say
Mhm,
you wanted to do like this, like, you know, where you do this, the black circle that grows and shrinks in on some part of the screen or something like that for a
mhm,
transition. Like that might require a custom shader and some stuff just to get working, or maybe even if it's just an image with a hole in it that you zoom in and out. But you could make a component in a system in Bones that would make it easy to control that. Then you drop the repr C annotation on it, and now Liss Scripts can modify it and control it super easy. And then that's abstracted away from the rendering details of exactly how you get that zoom in out effect. Um, and then it also
mm,
makes us Bevy agnostic, so that like it, like right now we really don't have any big requirements for rendering. We've got sprites, we've got tile maps, and we've got like debug lines, like tons of different. Oh, and then eGUI. eGUI is another part. That's what we do our UI with. So it's like if
mhm.
you can render eGUI, sprites, tile maps, etc., then you can make a renderer for Bones, and that's like it's not that's not like super difficult to do. I've done a couple 2D rendering stuff, so like we might have our own renderer later if that became useful, but right now we might as well just build on Bevy, let them do the windowing and all of that details too. But we're free to
Yeah.
change it, and like actually that's another project that might come onto this meetup at some point. Almost made it this week but didn't. They were thinking about using Bones for like a sand type rendering game. And
Mm,
there was the question of, okay, so in sand rendering, Bevy's not getting you much because you're pretty
mhm,
much wanting to put all those little pixels on the screen how you want specifically. And it's pretty much custom rendering, custom GPU calls at that point to get it efficient and super performant. So Bevy's not helping, and they're like, "Can you still use Bones?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, we could still use Bones, and then we just do the rendering ourselves instead of using
Oh.
Bevy." So while for fish folk it's easy, we would get cross-platform, we get the web build automated for us and stuff like that by using Bevy. At the same time, they can, for that project, they could feel free to swap out the rendering backend and still keep this networkable was part of the goal with Bones. And so the Bones world would be networked, and we keep this simple representation, and then the complicated rendering backend or whatever it ends up being can stay separate. And then while the rest of the gameplay type important stuff is moddable, networkable, and just easy.
Okay. Yeah, this is very cool to see. Like I've I've seen fish folk over time, but I have not gone and like really taken too much of a look at the code base itself. So it's been very interesting hearing about all the progress here, and I definitely hope to hear more about what's been going on, and also like if y'all have like community games and like stuff that's being worked on like downstream, definitely it would be super cool to hear from them about what's going on as well.
Yeah, and we're hoping that Bones kind of just recently got ready for like other games to use it and stuff like that, and hopefully hoping that that can help, let some help share the work so that we're not, redoing things and stuff like that. And but yeah, it's very exciting.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Ziklag, thank you so much for coming and presenting Bones. It was a lot of fun, and I hope to catch you in a future month.
Okie dokie. Thank
All
you.
right.